just give us a little bit about why you started the spiritual walks and what inspired you, or what inspires you to do what you do on there.
Yeah, so the spiritual walks, as in the name, it's linked to walking because that's really the practice that I was engaging in whilst on the spiritual path or the spiritual journey of self-discovery. Um, and it's all by accident, it's not like I read somewhere that I need to walk a certain number of times a day or anything like that.
So you're saying you were literally walking? That was part of your practice?
Yeah,
That's
just
cool.
walking
Walking
and
meditation.
yeah. So walking meditation is a thing. I discovered it was a thing afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so the beauty in taking a walk is that it's not very difficult for you to reach a place of effortlessness, where as you're walking, there's the recognition that the legs are moving, the the thoughts that appear, whatever appears in the immediate experience. You could be seeing trees, other people, the path, the birds, the sky. And as you're walking, um, eventually there can be the recognition that no one is actually doing the walking. All there is what
Mm-hmm.
there is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so there's no longer a claim of ownership over what's taking place in that practice, if you like it. Um, and so that's where the spiritual walks sort of was born out of, because on these walks I would have insights and realizations, and at the time what I would do is I would sit on a bench if I'm walking in a park and write these down. And so I thought, you know what, let's turn them into a video format, right?
Mm.
And so that's how it started, really. That's how it started. It was really all about walking. However, nowadays when I post these videos, there's not much walking involved. But I guess to the listener, um, they might enjoy listening or watching, while they're walking or in a park or outdoors at least. But I guess the other sort of meaning behind it is just walking is a symbol for journeying or movement
Yeah.
towards a certain place or no place at all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pathless path.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, what is your main message on there? If you could try to summarize it, what are you trying to convey?
So, it's well, so when I get feedback sometimes from people who watch my videos, one of the main things, and this could be individuals who aren't even into spirituality at all. One of the main things that comes back is, you know what, I watched this video and it really got me thinking, right? Um, and even though thinking is like a taboo in the spiritual realm, like you should, it's looked down upon. In essence, what they mean is it's got me to look more inwardly.
Yeah.
So it's allowed me to be more introspective, more meditative. Um, and with that, even though I didn't have an end goal, or an expectation, I deem myself as successful because this seems to be the most common feedback that I get from these videos.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, and I do feel like all that is really needed. If anything is needed, that's all that's needed, to just look inwardly and to just realize how this is taking place and what it's doing, and how it's having a projection on your reality. And this all starts with turning inwardly and understanding this mechanism, this body, the mind, and whatever's appearing in the immediate reality.
I see.
And so that's really the main, I guess, purpose or goal, is to shed light on that, and to allow people to recognize that this is taking place.
Hmm. Yeah. To just take a step back and wonder at the mystery of life itself, right? Get people's gears turning in the head, thinking about a little bit more of our existence a little more, the true wonder of what all of this is that kind of what you're getting at, like just kind of just opening up one to the divine mystery that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, so so the general focus in most people's lives, if not everyone, to be honest, is externalized, right? It's always this external focus. Like I need to go and do this and I need to go do that. This person said this and she said this and he, it's all the focus is always externalized, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is with this externalization, you can fall into the trap of somehow believing that whatever you are looking for is also external. And the funny thing is that if you are, let's say, in a holy place, whether it's a church, a mosque, or a temple, if you go inside and you feel peace, it's not that you went there and you entered. It's not that the peace is there. The peace is felt within, in essence,
Yeah.
right? And so whatever it is that you are chasing after, it's felt within anyway, right? And so it doesn't make sense to have this perspective where everything is always something that you have to go after. If you just turn around and recognize what this is and rest in that sense of being, in that stillness, then you realize, oh, I don't, everything I've ever wanted is here.
Mhm. Yeah.
Everything I've always been chasing after is here. I don't actually need to go and try to get it elsewhere.
Yeah, man. This is the temple. We're
Yeah.
already in it. We don't need anything else. So how did you get on this wavelength? Where did this all come from for you? Was there a moment where it just dawned on you, or is this like a gradual thing? Like every walk was a little more into this truth, this capital T truth.
Yeah. So so I always grew up with a high level of curiosity. I always had loads of questions, Teachers would tell me off for having so many questions, like, hey, look, this is the syllabus, A, B, C, like this is what we're following. Like you're asking questions that aren't relevant.
Hmm.
But to me, they're so highly relevant. And I
Yeah.
want to know. And somehow if I know these other things, whatever we're learning on the paper would make sense to me. And so I always wanted to get to sort of ask a higher level question, because whatever problem you come across in life, there's always a higher level of that problem, which gave birth to that problem you're trying to sort of solve anyway. And so I remember maybe 12 years ago now. Um, no, not 12 years, maybe 10 years ago now. I remember I moved out from home. I had like an internship in a different city. So I grew up in London and I moved to Manchester, which was roughly, 3.5 hours drive. So got my own place, moved there. And, just being there, I didn't know anyone. It was the first time moving out. It was a bit daunting. There was a bit of the element of fear and mystery. But I always like to just go head on in towards the mystery. And so I was trying to figure out in that year, it was like the year before going to university slash college. I wanted to figure out in that year what I want to do in my life. But because I had that curiosity that I was speaking about, I thought to myself, okay, why am I trying to figure out what I want to do in my life if I don't know what life even is?
That's
Right.
good. Mm-hmm.
And so that just opened up that sort of rabbit hole and and these questions, like it's because all of a sudden I'm asking a question that has no boundaries.
Mm.
And so the mind is just going crazy, just firing up 24/7, Um, and this carried on for quite a long time. And I realized that sometimes being around other people or being around other activities or whatever it would make it would make the mind even more turbulent. And so that's where I would step out and take a walk through the park, and that's how it happened. But really, asking these questions, wasn't so much about the contents of the questions. It was about the very practice of asking the question, what that really does. And what that does is, firstly, there's the admittance that you don't know, okay, that you are unsure. And this becomes a tremendous possibility because all of a sudden there's the natural openness to know. And I guess these two things is somewhat the prerequisite for a spiritual awakening. Um, in spiritual terms, there's so many different names for this, right? Um, and so this was the sort of path that I went on, and eventually it just it just happened, right? It just all clicked. It's very much like how, if when a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, or when or actually, a typical analogy I like to use is, if you are stuck in a maze and wherever you turn there's just walls around you, and you don't know how to get out of the maze. But let's say you spend 100 years walking around the maze and you finally find the exit, and you discover actually the exit of the maze is an entrance to another maze, right? And you're like, oh damn. So in this case, what happens is, all of a sudden you get picked up and you see the whole thing from a bird's eye point of view, which immediately solves the maze,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Because you only need a glimpse to realize how the maze gets solved. And so it was from that point onwards, I looked around and just thought, okay, who do I speak to about this? Because no one at work or anywhere, or my peers or my closest friends, family, no one understands what this is about. If I was to speak, and if I speak to them about it, they'll think I'm some maniac, like they couldn't relate, right? But at the same time, I also felt compelled that this is something that everyone is actually looking for anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's just the difference if you know it or not. That's the difference, is the awareness of this maze, the awareness of this game. There's a lot of different metaphors. Game, play, whatever it is, it's like something that one finds in their perspective that is reminiscent of some kind of illusion. Your life is seen as illusionary, at least from how you used to live. How the world has conveyed it to you. You know, and then this spiritual awakening, quote unquote, to me, is seeing through the illusion. And whatever metaphor you want to use, I like the maze. I've actually never heard that before. But whatever it is, and it's seeing through the illusion to see that what you were looking for the whole time is right here, right now. It's like you're looking for nothing. It's like what, and even if you're, like I said, even if you're unconscious of it, we're all looking for that right here, right nowness, that peace that resides in the moment. We're all looking for it. We just don't know where to look for it, man. We're looking for it from the outside world. We're trying to traverse this maze, trying to get to the end of the maze. So hopefully at the end we'll find it there. But like you said, we realize that, we take a step back, we realize almost in a way it's like the maze is just bringing us back to the beginning, like you said, a new maze, but in that is like you become the maze. You become, it's hard to explain, man. In that you become the maze, you become the matrix, you become the play, the game, and
Mm.
that's where the fun starts. That's where the peace is, because the maze still must be traversed, right? Even if you get that bird's eye view, there still is the maze, would you
Yeah,
say,
the maze
right?
doesn't disappear. It
Yeah,
remains. Yeah.
you just know it's a maze. I mean, that's a big difference. You know
Yeah.
that this life is a game, and that's a huge, huge difference. That's how I would describe a spiritual awakening, right? Is that kind of the gist of how you would describe it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
There's 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 a million ways of describing it, right? There's so many ways and analogies, um, and in essence, in another word for a spiritual awakening, could also be clarity.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden there is clarity, and it's not like clarity is something that you acquire or gain. It's just that the clarity has always been there. It's just that in the perhaps some level of stillness was required for that clarity to be realized, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Very much like I believe Alan Watts said this before, where if you have like a body of water and there's ripples on the surface, you know, what most people try to do to see through the surface is they try to calm it down with their hands, but that only introduces more ripples and turbulence, and so you still can't see. But really, you just have to let it be,
Let it
and
be.
then all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
it becomes clear, and you can see into the depths of it.
Yeah, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. There's another metaphor. It's the ocean. Whatever. I mean, that's the thing. Is there's metaphors on metaphors on metaphors. But it's really if you know, you know. You have
Mm,
to like tap into that in one's own accord, somehow, some way, to know that this is, yeah, it's all kind of a game.
mm,
And that's how you almost in the way win the game, is you recognize that it is the game. And the game goes on, you still have to play, but you play it a little differently knowing that it's a game, right? It's a little bit it's a little bit less serious, a little bit more playful, which is that's what games are meant for, to play, to have fun. There's a little bit more enjoyment, and most of all, I'd say from all of this hubbub that we're talking about, there's less suffering. There's less suffering because there's less inertia of the moment. One doesn't try to, like you said, change it. Just let it be. Whatever happens, whatever pops up, that's the goal, right? In this path, I see it as it's like whatever pops up, whatever comes, whatever goes, just almost witness it. Just as like a movie. You witness that. And how one witnesses it is because one knows that I it's like I am it in a way. It's hard to explain, man. It's like you become how one witnesses the phenomena of life. It's like you realize that that phenomena of life is it's God. It's everything. Like you, that is you. Whatever, even the pain. It's hard to explain, man. I think I've said that enough. It's hard to
yeah,
explain, but becoming
yeah,
that is peace. Like becoming the pleasures and the pain of life, and no matter what it is peace, and it
yeah,
negates suffering, which is what we all want.
yeah. So all of a sudden you realize that you are not the center of the universe, and so whatever happens,
Yeah. Mhm.
it doesn't mean that whatever happens around you is happening for you or against you, right?
Mhm.
Because true suffering really takes place because you believe you're the center of the universe. But
Yeah.
all of a sudden, when you recognize that you are a happening, just like the million numbers or the all the different numbers of happenings in the universe, it kind of people find this sort of dissolution scary, but really it puts you at ease.
Mhm.
Puts you at ease, and it actually frees you from the
Mhm.
shackles of being this center, which is actually an illusion.
Yeah, man. It's pretty powerful stuff, but it's the truth.
Yeah. So it's interesting you mentioned earlier, since we're on the topic of suffering, one thing that I get a lot of messages and comments about is suffering. It's like if I have blocked or past, say, trauma or memories or certain things are just happening in life and I don't want them to happen. There seems to be a lot of emotional work that happens naturally as you carry on this path. And one thing I always like to mention in regards to suffering is that it's very much like if there's a river flowing, the moment there's some form of resistance, then what you're doing is you're building up a reservoir, right, of water. And whatever it is that you're trying to resist is now just growing as this reservoir of water, whereas when there is no resistance and it's just allowed and accepted to pass, then you're not so much shackled by the emotions that keep haunting you for whatever reason. Um, and so this is something that can clearly be seen when you get taken out of out of the maze and then placed back in, and all of a sudden it's not the main focus. It's like, no, okay, life is happening, the emotions are there, the sun's rising, the birds are singing, like all these things are happening. It's not just, oh no, 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 there's just these emotions, and these emotions now also paint a color and shape and warp, reality. um and so really bringing it brings that clarity to this place. Hence why it doesn't get rid of suffering, but suffering becomes a lot more short-lived. It doesn't
Mm.
become really the core of your reality anymore.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's pretty powerful. Yeah, it's like less personal. I feel as though there's like a less of a need for control because I think every human being to a certain extent is a control freak. We all want to try to dictate how our life goes in a certain way. So with this mindset, I feel comes a sense of surrender to the process that we actually are. Finding out one's true identity is really finding out that there is no egotistical identity, but the identity of the energy that invigorates everything in this universe. That the happening, like we said, the grand happening, the whatever makes the birds chirp, the wind blow, the sun rise, just the motion, the force of Star Wars, maybe one would say. That's more so our true identity. It's like this process, it's this happening of energy, grand process that is really unfathomable. Like all of this happening at once in this moment. It's a grand happening, a grand vibration. That's how I see my true identity, I guess you could say, but it's really that's not even an identity either. But it's like that's what one can, I guess, awaken to is that your suffering, oh man, it doesn't really mean anything, man. It's so small in the scheme of things. It really doesn't. Do you realize how big this universe is and all of that's happening in this moment? And you're
Mm.
caught up in your story and your illusion. That's what I'm saying to myself. I'm not preaching to anybody else. If anybody's going through
Yeah,
suffering,
sure. Yeah.
that's what I say to myself in moments of suffering. It's that it's like, don't you recognize that it's almost pitiful to think like that and get caught up in the narratives of the world and the drama of my life. Don't you realize how grand your true identity is, your true essence is? That's what I get from it, man. It's like this. It's a remembrance. We say we awaken, right? We awaken to our dream state of thinking that we were just this body, when in reality, the whole time, before this body, after this body, and in this body, we were actually everything, every single thing that's happening all at once right now, and nothing at the same time, too, which doesn't really make any sense, but there's no other way I can say it. We are literally this entire process. One maybe might even say we are God incarnate. You could go there if you want to, but just look at it like just whatever happens in our humanly life, and we're gonna suffer, right? That's dukkha. That's the first rule of Buddhism, the first tenet. Suffering is going to happen, but it's all temporary, and it's just another phenomena in this life. And the more you resist it, like you said, the more you go against it, you put up barriers, the more literally you're going to suffer. The more that you resist and you don't want to suffer, you're going to suffer even more. That creates inertia for this experience. So our best bet as a humanly vessel in this flow, in this process, is to, yes, just let it be. Just let it be. Whatever happens here, just let it be. And obviously, it's easier said than done, right? I'm still on this path, still trying to let it be no matter what. Just when I think I got it all figured out, I'm letting it all be. Something happens in my life, I stub my toe, or someone cuts me off in traffic, and it gets me caught up in that. But it's a process. I think it's a process to figure out that we are the process. I think that's why we have these practices and certain modalities so that we can we can realign ourselves to the constant remembrance of the connection to this grand happening and this grand process whenever we need to. Yeah, hope that made sense to everybody. But do you have any other than walking? I mean, do you have any other modalities and practices that bring you into this moment that help align you into the maze, into the play of life?
Yeah, so you know, there seems to be this notion, right? And I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to this who are on this spiritual path. What tends to happen is that there's a development of an expectation or a belief of how one should be in order to be spiritual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like there's this new formulation of identity that is now surrounding, let's say spirituality.
That's another
Um,
trap.
yeah, and that's indeed is another trap. So that sort of identity is also born out of sort of micro reactions to situations. So you mentioned a few, right? Stubbing your toe or like getting caught in traffic. So what's really interesting, and this is something I like doing, is when I'm having this sort of animalistic, humanistic reaction or whatever you want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being moments where I'm feeling like I am the center of the universe, right? And there's this sense of separate I.
Yep.
Um, immediately, I can observe this and also recognize that's also part of the play,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Just feeling as though I am the center of the universe, and feeling as though there's this identity trying to do all these, grandiose things and trying to achieve all these goals and trying to get people to feel about me in a certain way and try to please. This is all also a part of it.
Yeah.
It's because, and so what happens is instead of trying to replace the identity with a new one, right? Just allow whatever there is to just be and to just recognize it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is to just recognize it for what it is. Because as soon as people recognize something, they try to change it immediately, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in other analogies, like we have this whole society, right? This whole civilization, and there's all these laws and rules and stuff, and there is, you can probably create a huge list that makes people unhappy, right?
Yeah.
But there are also some individuals who'd say, look, this whole civilization needs to collapse and we have to rebuild, right? But but is that really the approach that you would want? Is it the most ideal sort of approach? And the same thing happens when observing the identity, observing these humanistic or animalistic tendencies, feeling as though you're the center of the universe. When this is observed, and you're like, okay, this is, for a lack of a better word, this is bullshit. It's just an illusion. There's now the tendency to replace it, but no, it's not about replacing something with the other because you're still, it doesn't really change anything.
Yeah, that's actually resistance in itself. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's really just about recognizing the relationship and the level of value and importance that is attributed and given to certain belief systems, expectations, thoughts. So next time someone cuts you in traffic and you're rolling the window down and you're shouting a whole load of swear words, you know, judging yourself for doing that um, is also another form of resistance. It's
Mm-hmm.
also another form of a trap. Instead, recognize that this is what's happened, and it kind of now frees you further from trying to become this ideal spiritual person,
Yeah.
right? And this is just the way the mind works, right? It's the moment you tell it, to not do something, it's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what it does instead.
Yep. It's like don't think of a pink elephant. You're gonna think of a pink elephant right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting when you put it like that. Hmm. So it's like recognizing even when you're not recognizing. Some weird
Yes.
5D chess in your
Yeah.
mind. Yeah.
Recognizing the lack of recognition.
It's
Yeah.
kind of funny, but it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can ask the question of, okay, I'm recognizing the lack of recognition. Well, when has there ever been a moment where you are not recognizing or there is no recognition? Has there ever been a moment where there was no awareness? Has there ever been a moment where consciousness was switched off?
Feels like it sometimes, but in actuality, no.
Yeah. So a lot of people say, okay, well, how about when you sleep, right?
Hmm.
Well, the moment you sleep, you're up, right? So there was never really an interruption in consciousness. There was an interruption in the contents of consciousness.
Yeah.
There was an interruption in perhaps the flow of time, right? There was an interruption in what is seen, what is felt, whatever the senses pick up. But
Mm.
consciousness, which is the prerequisite that recognizes all of this stuff,
Yes.
is not interrupted
Mm-hmm.
ever.
Ever. Yeah. And then we can go down this route, man. The great interruption of our own demise, of our death. So
Mm,
if I think I would say, one would say that like, well, how is there consciousness if there's no me to perceive, to perceive this consciousness? Well, I guess if one, this is how I see it personally, if one can recognize that this consciousness goes beyond this body, then one essentially does not reach that interruption of consciousness. If one can identify outside of this body and see that consciousness pervades everything, literally everything, other people as well, but also other objects, other phenomena that one may see, then I think that's when one can transcend our inevitable death. And that's the biggest one, man. That's what we all got in the back of our heads. That's what we've all been conditioned into is our death. But I see it as the biggest thing from this whole conversation of non-duality is literally it's almost like a transcendence in death. It's a transcendence in birth as well. There was no interruption before. There was no what's that called? There was an intermission in a movie. Like there was no intermission before your life and there's no interruption after it either. It's just a constant flow, and what's happening here in your life is just another happening, just like I said, the trees blowing in the wind or the birds chirping, the rivers flowing. If one can keep that constant flow, that flow goes on with or without your body here, then one can transcend the bodily demise. And who doesn't want that, man? you know? Oh, it's
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, there's a quote actually. Can't remember who said it, but everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and yeah, like the biggest fear in most people's life is death. And so when that sort of just dissolves, then then now you can finally tell yourself that you are alive. Now you can finally truly live.
That's the irony.
Yeah. And and yeah, so the part of the illusion is that every single individual has their own individualistic pocket of consciousness,
Yeah.
right? And they are moving around, and each pocket of consciousness is unique, right? Um, and that there's lots of different consciousnesses, but really all there is that it's just one consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is, but there is individualistic perspectives, right, of that consciousness.
Yeah.
And so you can very easily see why there's the tendency in believing that you are the center of the universe, right?
yeah.
Because you have your own perspective, or there is this particular perspective, okay? That's cool, but that doesn't mean other perspectives should be undermined in any way or form. It's all
Yeah.
part of this whole thing or no thing, right? That we are
Mm-hmm.
currently referring to as consciousness.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. It's pretty trippy. It's really not actually. It's pretty peaceful when you look at it like that. But I think it can be a little daunting at first to have that dawn on somebody
Mm,
on one point on one locale of consciousness. It can be a little trippy to realize that we're actually all the same wavelength.
mm,
We're all literally the same thing. Like in a way, you could say that me and you and the listener and the microphone and the camera are all literally the same thing. Like
Yeah.
it's the same, not even thing, but like the same essence at its core. We're the same happening.
Mm.
And that, yeah, that can be trippy, but to me that's actually like that's cool to know that this
Yeah.
is
So
all
what?
like me. Go ahead.
So we'll seeing this then. Would I ever feel compelled to hurt you
Mm-hmm.
or lie to
No,
you or
no,
steal from you? Right? It
no.
doesn't make sense anymore. It's not that I don't do these things because I'm worried I might get punished or go to hell now. It's
Mm-hmm.
because it just simply doesn't make sense. I see in my immediate reality that it doesn't make sense, you know?
Exactly.
If we're all, different leaves on the same branch of a tree, right? If I hurt you, then I'm actually contributing towards the death of me even, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the pain of myself. And so really seeing this, which can spark from being introspective and meditative and looking within and doing self-inquiry, which going back to the very initial question of why I started the spiritual walks, this is this is, I'm hoping that I could somehow ignite something within whoever the listener may be to just look within and see what's going on, and in the hopes that there may be clarity, that there may be a light that is shedding over all the dark parts of our being, so that this can be seen, so that I can see that you are me, I am you, and etc. And this is where, you can now look around and say, okay, this is the heaven that we've been promised,
Mm-hmm.
right? The hereafter or the nirvana or whatever, all these different terms. There's always this end promise, right?
Yeah.
And this is what it is.
Yep. We're already in heaven.
Yeah, it's quite funny, Imagine, imagine when you die, God asks you, "How was it?" Right? And
Mm-hmm.
you say, "How was what? How was heaven?" Will you turn around and be like, "Oh shit"?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
I'd be like, where am
Or,
I
or will
now?
you, yeah, or will you be like, "It was a ride. Thanks."
Could have
You
been
know?
better, God. No, no. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's true, man. I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. Yeah, it's true. We already are in heaven, but it's like, it's heavily disguised. It's heavily, I don't know. We're heavily subverted from that idea at this point. But I think
Mm,
the cat's out of the bag. I think this inevitable kingdom of heaven is found within all of us, and then we go and bring it without. Like that's not the end of the journey, right? To figure out that all is one and one is all. I think it's just the beginning of said journey, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
that journey is to all of us to kind of get on that wavelength, get on that bandwagon and bring about literally said heaven. And that's, yeah, man, that's why, like you said, once you recognize that we're all the same thing, how am I going to hurt myself? How am I going to do anything but love myself?
Mm,
That's the next stage I see in our evolution, is that we're all literally, we come to this recognition.
yeah. It's
And
beautiful that you say that. It's like, if we're all the same, how can I do anything but love myself?
yeah,
And this is why, very commonly we hear that God is unconditionally loves everyone, right?
yeah,
You can see why that makes sense now, right?
mm,
We always think that God is like somewhere else. It's like it's separate, right?
yeah,
But how can you say that God is one if there's any form of separation? It's impossible, right?
yeah,
And this is what the sort of the basis of the faith of most, of the Abrahamic faiths are like, and other faiths, there's always this core of unity and oneness. But how can you truly embody and realize oneness if you're believing that, this God you're worshiping is elsewhere, right?
mm-hmm,
Is separate from you.
mm-hmm.
You know?
It literally makes no sense at a certain point. It doesn't make any sense. And yeah, we literally become gods. Ye are gods in that manner. I would say that also it's not that like our separation and differences disappear. I recognize that I am here on this side of the camera, on this side of the globe, and you're there, and the listeners, wherever they are. But it's like a simultaneous difference and similarity at the same time. And that is, in a way, that is becoming God. It's recognizing both, not staying in one or the other, not one camp. A true non-duality, in my sense, is both at the same time. Mm. It's peculiar,
Mm.
because I mean, I don't know,
Well,
man. I guess.
I'll tell you something. So, when since we're talking about, God, um, you know, it's it's always we're always taught, I guess, that God cannot be imagined, or it depends on the background and the religion. Some religions will put figures and perhaps images, idols, whatever it is, ideas surrounding what God is. Others won't have any of that.
Yeah, like Muhammad.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like Islam, they won't denote any images, but they do denote attributes or characteristics. So
Mm-hmm.
there's 99 names of God, right? Of Allah
Mm-hmm.
that exist. But all in all, what I'm trying to say is that um God is known to be omniscient, omnipresent, right? Capable of everything, right? Able to do everything. But in order to satisfy that God is able to do absolutely everything, to truly satisfy that, there needs to be the inability to do anything.
Yeah.
And only then can that be complete.
Yep.
Only then can that attribute be truly whole.
Mm.
And so, in some sense, if God can do everything, then the human aspect is the not being able to do everything, right? If God
Yeah.
knows what's around the corner all the time, then the human aspect of that is not knowing what's around the corner. And so, having both these sort of dualities, or having both these sort of attributes, is what brings about the completeness of the ability to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, totally. In that
Yeah.
way, it's like God needs us as much as we need God.
Yeah, so need, people might find the word need blasphemous. They might get triggered by that word. Um, but perhaps it's more like, we are there for God as God is there for us,
Mm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, and and I wouldn't say so much of a need kind of thing, but it is symbiotic,
Yeah.
but it but at the same time though, it's if you have, let's say, different objects, right? If you have like a, I don't know, so I've got this orange slash clementine, right? And then I've got this pen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just because if I get rid of one of these things, it doesn't make the reality not non-dualistic anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether this is here or not, it doesn't make the reality incomplete, right?
Yeah.
So perhaps you can say that the identity that we've developed, the thoughts, the memories, whether they exist or not, does not mean that there is the sense of incompleteness. If this thought and identity isn't there, it doesn't make reality incomplete.
Mm. Yeah.
And and so in that same way, um, that's why using the word need can become somewhat challenging in this context.
Yeah, because it infers lack, which there never is lack. There always is completion.
Exactly.
I think
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, and I think the listener knows what I'm saying. But yeah, I agree.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're always complete, even when there is no. Yeah, there is no uncompletion. Completion is fulfillment is. That's it. Completion is fulfillment is at all times, with or without us here as this phenomenon.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But you know, thoughts and ideas come along and will propose that certain aspect of reality is incomplete. There is some sense of lack, right? Which then becomes illusory, but because as reality is, it's impossible to have any sense of lack or any form of incompletion.
Mm-hmm. Hallelujah.
Mm.
That's truly the kingdom of heaven, is when one can realize and truly resonate that there is nothing that we
Yeah,
need here.
yeah. So Islamically, right? So I grew up, you know, under the Islamic faith. Islamically, the way heaven is denoted is that you have never-ending rivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have never-ending yards and never-ending whatever it is that, you know, this reality has to offer or Earth has to offer, let's just say. There is that form that is unimaginable and never ending, right? In heaven, right?
Complete
So
abundance.
yeah, there's absolute abundance, absolute and complete abundance. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how heaven is always denoted, right?
Mm-hmm.
But but in the same way, you could truly sit here, look around, and realize that nothing is lacking. And this is actually a meditative practice that Zen Buddhists can use, where it's a koan, right? It's the question that you propose to the meditators or to whoever is um, is anything missing in this moment, right?
Hmm.
And so the mind will come with loads of different things, like, oh, I'm thirsty, I need some water. Oh, I need this and I need to do that, and I've got to clean the windows or whatever, right? It will come up with so many different things. But you keep asking that question and realize actually nothing's missing at all, right?
Yeah.
I am projecting an emptiness or sense of lack onto reality, feeling as though something is indeed missing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But really, if these projections now drop, nothing is missing.
Mm-hmm.
So in some way, you can see this as an absolute and complete abundance.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's so true, man. God is abundance. Heaven is abundance. And it's a constant abundance. Yeah, man. I don't even know what else to say. It's just good. It's so true. What else is there to say, man? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you direct people toward that? You just allow an exploration, just like simple meditation of the moment, of the breath. Like, how do you become the guidance and the finger that points at the moon without getting people lost at the finger?
Yeah. Um, there is a lot of that, by the way. People getting too caught up by the words, by the belief,
Symbols.
by the
Mm-hmm.
by the symbols. You know, there's so much of that, and you know, there's only so much you could do as well. It's I guess it's not. I guess in some way, I don't see it as approaching those as approaching people to guide them, right? It's more, it's like, hey, I'm here, you
Yeah.
know, I'm putting this stuff out, right? If there's just one person that resonates with it and it ignites something within them, then that's it. We're good, you know? But even if there isn't, that's it's cool. Like all I'm doing is I'm just describing reality. I'm just describing what I'm seeing, you know. There's nothing special about this, really. If
Yeah.
if you actually really look at it, there's nothing special about any of this, but at the same time, it's the most special, magnificent thing there ever could be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's a lot more like, you know, people may pass by and they see a video and it's like, I appreciate this, thank you so much. And and they may have gained something out of it, or they may have been pointed towards a particular direction that then allows them to continue on, you know. Um, I don't see myself as this individual that will take them from A to B, right? And give them that final destination. No, it's like if there's anything that you could take from this, um, or if there's anything that I could point out that you could potentially drop because it's weighing you down, right? Then cool, right? And then you may carry on. It's yeah, I wouldn't say it's like your typical, hey, I'm the leader and I'm taking you from A to B. It's
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like an unconditional relationship. I'm here if you need me. I'm just putting this out there. If you want it, you can have it. If you don't want it,
yeah,
no harm, no foul. You can just whatever. It's okay. I see. And that's how you escape the guru complex, because a lot of the gurus of the 20th century would say, "You need me. You need my word. Don't listen to anybody else. It's me." And I think that's the new way of guidance, and the true way of guidance I see in the 21st century is that like, you just put it out there, and like you said, if one person gets something from it, that's cool. If not, whatever. I had some fun making it. When it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like less pressure on yourself as well as the putting pressure on the other person, or less pressure on the other person.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, man.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you can't force it, right? So very, very early in my journey, I'd get very frustrated when seeing close family, friends just getting caught up in suffering, it would really frustrate me because I can see that it's just a simple fix, right? It's just a simple realization.
Yeah.
Like that whatever you're going through is actually bullshit. But
Hmm.
but you can't actually go up to them and say, hey, what you're going through is bullshit because that could actually make them feel worse.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like, hey man, like, I'm here,
Yeah.
can't do anything.
Hmm.
And then sometimes you also have individuals where, they're drowning and you're trying to get them out of the water and they're actually pulling you in so that you drown as well. And
Hmm.
it's like, oh, sorry, I'm gonna have to let you go here. And then there used to be this frustration, but then eventually I recognized and saw that no, like in some way it's beautifully unfolding as it should, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And
It's
and
all
it's
perfect.
happening as it should. It's perfect. And me just recognizing that and allowing it to just be puts me at ease, puts everyone else at ease, hopefully, and that's it.
That's it, man. The only thing we can do is save ourselves, truly. But it's like when you save yourself, you're saving yourself.
Mm,
As above, so below. But it's like in
yeah,
this game, it's like all you can do is save this kind of version of the self, and then that in turn saves the other selves that are also the self.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
the rules. That's in the game. That's in the rule book of the game.
yeah, yeah. No, I completely see what you're saying here. Yeah, it's like the moment you wake up, it's like there's this divine gratitude that just gets showered upon you. Um, as as like, oh, finally, I see it now. Wait, but I always knew it, but I see it now, kind
Yeah,
of thing.
and you want to give it to others, right? Well, who
Yeah.
wouldn't? It's just it's really good. It's positive intentions right behind it, but it's not
Mm.
that easy. You can't just say wake up and then everybody wakes up. It's not that easy.
And like it's also not very far-fetched as to why there is the willingness to share this, right? Because let's just imagine that you went to the bakery and there's this very nice piece of chocolate cake that you had, and it might be vegan because that might be someone's preference or whatever.
Hmm.
You have this, chocolate cake, and you just realize, wow, this is the most amazing chocolate cake I've ever had in my life. So suddenly, like some people might spring to mind and you might call them and maybe buy some or might drag them out of their house and say, come, you've got to have this because this is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the same thing, right?
Yep.
It's really no different. It's but it's not a chocolate cake. It's in some way it's not anything, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And this is where it can get difficult, but the path or the pointing, you know, with the chocolate cake, I can point towards the shop and you may make your way there.
Mm-hmm.
But when when it comes to a spiritual awakening, the pointings are a lot more intimate, are a lot more involving and inward, where as soon as people turn inward, they might see things that, hey, look, in order for me to carry on, I've got to challenge this core belief that has been conditioned and drilled within me from such a young age, where if I do this and if I just even dare to have the intention to question this core belief, a huge amount of fear will come up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so you know what? I don't want to do that. Instead, I'll just call bullshit on whatever this guy is suggesting. I don't want to listen to this guy. I don't want to do any of this, right?
Yeah.
So that's like the most sort of common thing that will happen to the layman whoever comes across this. It's like, yeah, whatever, and just shrugs it off. But then maybe later on down the line, and it's crazy because I sometimes get calls, one-on-one sessions with people. Some of them are maybe twice, three times my age, and it's actually crazy because they say, "Well, it's taken me all these years to finally be here, right?"
Yeah.
And somehow, sometimes, not all of them, sometimes there's this sort of like, I should have discovered it before kind of thing. This sort of belief develops, and it's like, no, this is the absolute perfect time for you to have discovered it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because maybe it was just simply impossible to discover it any other way, right?
Yeah.
This timeless realization, right? It's a timeless realization anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and and so in that same context, it just gets realized in the exact perfect moment as it should.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, I know what you mean. You can't force it. You can't
Yeah,
force it.
forcing it is I've left that game
Yeah, that's
behind.
not it. When you're trying to force it, that's not it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, man, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say. I think this was a really good conversation. Do you have any last words?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for, doing this. Honestly, it's amazing to have these conversations just online. People can just come across them, um, and carry on doing it, man. And like just carry on doing it for the very sole reason of doing it. You don't
Mm-hmm.
actually need an ulterior goal, or anything like that. Yeah, just the joy of curiosity and going with the combo.
That's it,
Amazing.
bro. That's it, bro. That's what I do it for. Same to you. Same to you.
Thank you.
We're on the same path in different ways and different locations on the world, but ultimately it's the same thing. Keep on doing it for the joy of curiosity. I like that. The joy of curiosity.
Yeah, yeah. If you ever want to hit me up in the future, then yeah, please feel free to do so.
For sure, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's definitely do this again. But yeah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate your wisdom. I appreciate anybody that has listened this long. Yeah, I'll put all your information in the description for people to check you out. But yeah, let's keep on keeping on.
yeah.
Thanks, man, and
All right.
peace out.
Take care, bro.